Mark, at the beginning of the Redbird Migration 2013 rendition, a lot of people here, a lot of excitement because, let's face it, it's a very innovative, very exciting place to be right now. Have you had a chance to get a look-see at what's happening at Redbird yet?
Yeah, I have. I got a chance to walk around with John and Martha King, who knows very well. Yes. And John gave me a good tour of all these great simulators that, you know, really seemingly put a lot of utility to work for flight instructors so they can be busy all day now. No weather excuses anymore.
I have the great honor in my misspent career to basically to have taught at 4 business schools: UCLA, UC Berkeley, Arizona State, and the Ohio State University. All my students basically know that they insist on an ex-ante basis that they know how they will be graded. All my students know that I'm a big partial credit guy, if you will, class participation guy. And basically, in fact, at the Ohio State University, 40% of their grade is based on class participation. Now, based on your tepid response to my morning salutation, you are all sucking a D right now, all right? So you are industry changers and visionaries, so let's try that one more time. Good morning, everyone. Yes, all right, there you go. I'd like to begin, if I could, by saying thank you. First, thank you to Redbird for creating this shared space. I am a classically trained cultural anthropologist. This is not a day away from the office. This is not an opportunity to see cool, well, it is an opportunity to see cool stuff, but we anthropologists call this the post-industrial campfire. All right, so thank you for creating this place where we can come together to celebrate and cerebrate about the future of an industry we all love. I'd like to also thank basically the amazing industry luminaries that we have assembled that I am honored to proceed and follow to the podium. But my final thank you, and the most important thank you, goes to you, the participants, because we know we're presuming upon your scarcest and most valuable resource, your time. So we will make sure that we do everything we can in our humble capacity to make sure that you get a supranormal return.
Being here is a thrill for me because I always wanted to fly. So we're going to talk about 21st century digital natives. That's the name we give to your kids or your grandkids. Some of you are in this room. So this, if anything, is going to be like a psychological review as to why they are different. And of course, there's a challenge in that. Because in the same way that they are different, you're going to have to reflect and say, do I care? There's a fundamental shift and change occurring among young people. And we have the choice to either address it or to stick our heads in the sand. Other realities. Folks, they do not perceive of time and space the way we did. And this is very important. Because you love flying. And doesn't it boggle your mind when a young person says, well, that's boring? Let me get this straight. We're in the air, in a machine. If that thing's not turning, we have a problem, and this is boring. I mean, there's a problem in communication here. I have seen the androids. The Japanese are making some very cool androids. There was an android I saw in Japan. How realistic was it? I asked her out. I asked her, and they said, if you don't mind carrying all the pneumatic tubes, she'll go out with you. And if it's one thing about this generation, they love stories. They love experiences. And you're providing them with an incredible one. It's the message. You've got to work on getting that message out to them in a way that resonates with them. Because there's nothing like flying. There's no greater freedom. It's something we have always sought after.
Hi, I'm Jeff Van West, and I'm not a millennial. There'll be a support group for all of us after the presentation. It'll be held in the library. You know I'm not a millennial because I chose to look at a vision of the future by invoking a movie that was made before we ever stepped on the moon, looking at the 21st century. And you know, there's a hazard in looking forward. There's a hazard in predicting the future. We have these great visions of what the future is going to be, and usually when we get there, we're blisteringly wrong. Well, we're not always wrong. But that's okay. It's okay because even when you're wrong, if you have the momentum, if you have the energy to look forward, you find yourself in the parts that were mistakes, you end up actually being correct, but in ways you never dreamed of when you actually started down the path.
And he talked me into coming here to talk about diesels, and I'm happy to do that based on what I've learned in covering diesels for about 10 years. I'm starting with this slide for a reason. And if you're speed reading past that, what it really says is that. And the reason I'm starting with this slide is that most of us in this room, if I ask for a raise of hands, I'm sure everybody would say, you get most of your information from the aviation media. The aviation media tries hard. We do the best reporting we can, but in covering anything in aviation, and especially diesels, I'm reminded of what a city editor told me when I started in newspapers more years ago than I'm willing to admit. We don't report the news, we report what people tell us.
And so I'm actually, I am not a pilot, you know, I do not own an airplane, I have aspirations, and I understand it's getting much easier now, but I'm actually on the road 280 days a year, which is I'm genetically engineered for airline travel, I am short and squat and actually like the food.
And it's always remarkable and humbling to me that we're able to gather such great heads together to meet and to talk about ideas and exchange ideas. I'm going to talk about this for a minute, okay? Because I know that some of the folks in the audience think that was one of the craziest things that they ever heard of. We at the Skyport had to figure out whether cost was really a driver. Now picture this for just a second. What would have happened had we reduced the cost of avgas down to $1 and nobody came? And everybody's theories about what's causing pilots not to fly was wrong. Honestly, that would have worried me a lot if we hadn't seen a really, really big increase. Now, we didn't see a big increase. We saw an enormous increase. This, as you probably heard, this place pumps 4,000 gallons of avgas a month. We were pumping 8,000 gallons of avgas a day during those first 15 days. And so it was really gratifying to know that that worked, because what we did was we pulled one of those valves, one of those levers, those cost levers, and said, okay, what happens when we do this? And we didn't pull it a little. We pulled that lever all the way back to see what would happen. And we got a very, very interesting result. Now, can we do that again? I don't recommend it, you know. But damn oil companies.
So here, I'm going to close my very brief opening remarks, if you will, with a question that I torment my students with, all right? Did the people living in the Middle Ages know they were living in the Middle Ages? Now remember, I said I was empirical. So think about it. If you're living in the Middle Ages, you've got a 98% chance of being a peasant, right? So you wake up, you're a peasant, you wake up in the morning, you say, today sucks. You know? If you're a historically focused peasant, you say, you know, come to think of it, yesterday sucked too. You know? And if you're a future-focused peasant, you say, and if I live, I'm going out on a limb here, I'm betting tomorrow's going to suck as well. All right? That is medieval thinking, ladies and gentlemen, because basically in the Middle Ages, people had no concept of progress. It just was just big, one just big suck, right? That's, and that's not where we are, because we're no longer living in the Middle Ages. Here's the thing, headline, we're no longer living in the Middle Ages, right? Basically, and yet many leaders still seem to behave as if we do. Progress, ladies and gentlemen, basically, the defining reality of the modern age is that positive change is possible.
Now, we all know that the industry rate is horrific when it comes to when people walk in the door and how many people complete flight training. But the answers are all pretty simple. It's too hard, it takes too long, and it costs too much money. And we've known this forever. The only thing surprising about this information is that anybody would find it surprising. I happen to be lucky in that, after I migrated out of the Air Force, which was a nice way of saying retiring, I was hanging around and somebody from the FAA said, "Hey, Roger, we've been looking at you for a while, and clearly you can't fly, you can't instruct, and you're kind of a jerk. How about being an examiner?" And I said, "I don't know, it sounds pretty good to me." Yeah, that's actually not a true story. Nobody's ever said I couldn't fly, okay? But as an examiner, and there are several others in the room that I recognize, you act kind of like a forensic pathologist. You get to see a lot of other people's mistakes. And because you do, you get an opportunity to peek into this window about why people are not successful into those things that we call flying skills or oral evaluation skills. And that allowed us, I think, to have a little insight on how to rewire the CFIs. And if they walk around and they twitch every once in a while, like their characters in the Matrix, that's because of that rewiring. There's a term here that I hear occasionally from one of my very endearing part-time instructors, and that is, "I teach my students." Now, how many ways do I hate this phrase? Well, let's count them. 1, I. That instructor has just made this about me doing something. That instructor is doing something, when in fact there is a whole network here that learner has paid for to come in and do it. Teach. Who here teaches people to fly? Raise your hand. Don't raise your hand because you've been to my seminars. You can't do it, okay? So don't put your hand up and be foolish. We will mock you for doing it. The point is that learning to fly is a psychomotor skill that has to be developed by the learner. We are coaches at best. The third word there is my. They're not the instructor students. They are customers who come here to Skyport for training, and they're all part of the team. And of course, students, my last word. And I know it's been used today, and it's no offense that you offend me with that particular term. In this country, the word student invokes a superior-subordinate relationship. It's just the way it is. It's just a word. But when we keep using that word, then the learner begins to feel that they are in a subordinate position, when in fact, the instructor's position is to elevate that person, at least on an equal basis. And oh, by the way, we have a whole network here that elevates the learner up to make sure that their needs are being achieved. So how many ways do I hate that sentence? There's 4 words and 4 ways I hate it.
I was kind of surprised when I saw the lineup of speakers that Jerry put me not only last but after him. And Jerry is a tough act to follow, as everybody knows. And not only that, but while Roger was the last thing standing between you and a break, I believe the last thing standing between you and drinking and dinner. So that's a pretty tough order. So I've got a long series of very dense flow charts and graphics to share with you. No, seriously, we're going to be doing I want to show you some video. Now, when Jerry asked me to share with you guys some of the most interesting things going on in aviation right now, it was a really cool assignment, because there's just no shortage of those things right now. And that's because in aviation, we have just a tremendous number of really, really smart, interesting, inventive, innovative people. And it really surprises me sometimes that we're able to take all this really cool stuff that we have going on in the industry and present to these student pilots, these new pilots, these people coming to our world, a vision of the world that is anything but interesting. And I think one of the reasons is that we need to show them the passion that we have for what we do.
2,500 flight schools scattered around the United States. And 5,200 is another number for you, 5,200 public use airports. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters because we're at one of those public use airports in what is now one of those flight schools, except this one is different. This one is unique. As you've heard this evening, this is a very special place. This is special because it's an experiment. It's a research and development facility that is going to be incorporating all sorts of new opportunities for us to figure out what works in helping students get through the flight training process. Know that AOPA congratulates all of you in San Marcos for your vision and willingness to stop talking and start doing the right thing for general aviation. Also know that we will do all that we can at AOPA to help you be successful and to share with the aviation industry what it is that you learn here so that we can all benefit from it. That sort of success will be a lasting legacy for Redbird, and I don't know about you, but I'm pleased to be here and to be a part of it.